Welcome to the House of Truth. Today we're continuing our series on the Acts of Moses. Last week, if you remember, we talked about preparing for the Levites, and the most important thing out of it was the strange thing how they were connected to the tabernacle, how they were connected to the structure of the tabernacle, and when it moved from place to place, they took it apart, they set it back up. But the strange thing were just like on the tabernacle itself, the all these beautiful layers were covered by a rather plain layer of animal skin. We talked to how the Greek word is translated as like like hyacinth, a flowering plant that's typically blue, but the Hebrew word translated as badger skins was just simply skins, like saying fur coat without specifying what kind of animal. But we looked at the fact that the hyacinth, like hyacinth, may not refer to the color, but could refer to the draping. And so what you had was, and then you did the same thing with you did the same thing with the Ark of the Covenant and the Ark of the Ark of the Covenant and so on and so forth, and the furniture of the tabernacle. And so all people could see, they couldn't see the holiness of the beauty, only could see this outward skin. And it's a picture of Messiah. How he's clothed in human is being clothed in human flesh hid his holiness and beauty. He looked rather ordinary. And this week we're talking about going back a little bit where we should have perhaps went before, and we're talking about we're we're talking about the Malach Adonai, the angel of the Lord. And as I mentioned, we should have covered this because we've been trying to go chronologically earlier, but there's a couple of confusing points with this and the one with Jethro, which also we did a little out of place. I want to correct that first. And the reason with Jethro we went out of place was we saw where Moses was teaching the commandments, but in the narrative there's still a Rephidim hadn't even went to Sinai yet. So how could they have been teaching the commandments? Well, here, if he hadn't heard them yet, well, here's the answer to that question. So we begin in Genesis 25 verses 1 through 2. Then Abraham took a wife, and her name was Keturah, and she bare him Zimram and Yakshan and Medan and Midian and Ishbak and Shua. Now remember, Midian is who Jethro came from, as we talked about. So so Abraham taught circumcised all these children as what they came after Isaac, and also taught them the same things he taught Isaac. And among those things he taught, what we find was this: sojourn in the land, and I'll be with you. In Genesis 26, 3 through 5, this is the Lord speaking to speaking to Isaac about Isaac about Abraham. Sojourn in this land, I'll be with you and bless you. For unto you and to your seed I'll give all these countries, and perform the oath which I swear unto your Abraham your father. I'll make your seed to multiply as the stars of heaven. I'll give unto your seed all these countries. And in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Because that Abraham obeyed my voice, kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. So what we see here, notice that Abraham was given commandments, statutes, and laws. Now, obviously, not all of Moses is going to get on Sinai. There was nothing about the Aaronic priesthood, in the tabernacle, for example. But those weightier matters of the law that we've talked about so many times, he was given those, and of course, circumcision as well. So now he was able to pass that down through Midian, a line of transmission to Jethro, and Jethro, Moses stayed with him for 40 years. Jethro was able to transmit those to Moses. So the statutes of command, so a lot of these commandments were given to Abraham first before they were and transmit it, as I just mentioned, all the way down to Moses. So that's how Moses could be here at Rephidim, as we see in Exodus 18, 16 through 20, teaching the commandments, teaching, decide, judging people based on God's commandments before he ever received them, before God told him those in Sinai, because he had received them through this oral transmission from Abraham through Midian, through Jethro to him. And here's what we read in Exodus 18, verses 16 through 20. When they have a matter, they come to me and I judge between another, and I do make them know the statutes of God and his laws. Moses Pharaoh said to him, the thing you do is not good. You shall surely wear away both you and your people with you. This thing is too heavy for you to be able to perform it yourself alone. Hearken now to my voice, I'll give you counsel, and shall be with you. Be ever the people to Godward, that you may bring the cause of things to God. You shall teach them ordinances and laws, and show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Okay, notice here this mentioning here by Jethro of ordinances and laws as well. He's aware of these statutes and laws, Moses says. The statute, as I was saying, Moses says they already have them, even though he's not went to Sinai yet. He goes to Sinai at the beginning of the next chapter. Beginning of the next chapter, in the third month, is when they arrive at Sinai. So this is right after the battle with Amalek. Okay, so between Amalek and when he went to Sinai, this is when this occurs. And this is how he was able to be doing this. So some of these commandments were already given to Abraham and transmitted again through his son Midian, through to Jethro, to Moses. So they actually kind of circumvented the entire Jewish people, because we saw in the previous lesson the Jewish people were mostly in idolatry in Egypt, as it tells us in Ezekiel 20. Okay, so now we're going to talk about now we go to another one that we went a little bit out of order, because again you'll see in a moment why. But it appeared that this one belonged after the tabernacle was set up, and we'll look at why that appears that way and why I thought that and why someone could think that, and then we'll look at why it's not really that way. But let's begin here. Now, in Exodus 32, verse 34 through 35, the end of the golden calf, in the chapter of the golden calf. Now, therefore, go and lead the people in the place I've spoken to you. My angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I visit you, I'll visit your sin upon them. And the Lord plagued the people because they made the calf which Aaron had made. Okay, remember Moses had went up to the mountain, got these commandments concerning the tabernacle, etc., so God could be in their midst, and could be in their midst, etc. And he came down and he threw the stone tablets that God had made, the tablets and the writing on them, the initial set, because of this golden calf. Now, look what God's telling him. He's not even giving another set of commandments. He's just telling him to go ahead and just go. Just go ahead and go. Go, just head on to the promised land. God's kind of had it here because of this golden calf business. Well, now we pick up in 33, the next chapter, in verse 1 through 2, and it's connected to that golden calf. And here's what we read. And the Lord said unto Moses, depart and go from hence, and you the people you brought out of the land of Egypt, which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, saying, unto your seed I will not give it. I will send an angel before you and drive out the Amorite, the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite, to a land flowing with milk and honey. For I will not go up in the midst of you, for it is stiff-necked people, lest I consume you on the way. Okay, so notice the second time mentions this angel. His angel is going to go before them, but now he's telling them, I'm going to send the angels, I've said, but I'm not going to be in the midst of you. Remember, the tabernacle was about the tabernacle was about God being in the midst of the camp of the people of Israel. And, and why is it not going to be in the midst of them? Because they're rebellious, and he will end up consuming them along the way if he's in the midst of them. Now, as we continue on in Exodus 33, verse 4 through 6, we read the response of the people about this. And what, and kind of the root of the problem here. And what we see is this: when the people heard these evil tidings, they mourned, and no man did put on his ornaments. For the Lord said to Moses, "Say to the people of Israel, you're a stiff-necked people. I'll come up in the midst of you in the moment and consume you. Now put off your ornaments from you. I may know what to do unto you." The children of Israel stripped themselves of their ornaments by Mount Horeb. Okay, so now so they so they haven't so they so since they were mourning, they didn't put them on, but some of them did. But basically, what are these ornaments? They're tied to that golden calf. Now, doesn't tell us what that looks like. Perhaps there's some of the jewelry they got from Egypt, or perhaps they made some, but they're somehow connected. They're somehow connected to that. They are somehow connected to the golden calf. Okay, they are somehow connected to that golden calf, and they're kind of like souvenirs. It's kind of like if someone went down the Southern Decadence, or Mardi Gras, something like that. Southern Decadence, New Orleans too. It's kind of Mardi Gras for homosexuals, and God shut the party down, and they stopped the activity, but they're all wearing T-shirts commemorating it. Showing the only reason they're not continuing is because the party was shut down, not because they've got any kind of remorse over having the party to start with. And that's what's going on here. They're stiff-necked, and they're provoking God, still provoking him after 24,000 of them were killed over this worship of the golden calf. They're provoking them with these ornaments that hearken to the incident. So now we're going to look at Moses, and we're going to see where the confusion. This is where we see where the confusion occurred, and we're going to clarify it. So I read here in Exodus 33, 7 through 11, we read the following. Moses took the tabernacle, pitched it without the camp, afar from the camp, and called the tabernacle the congregation. And it came to pass that everyone which sought the Lord went out into the tabernacle of the congregation, which was without the camp. And it came to pass when Moses went out into the tabernacle, all the people rose up and stood every man in his tent and looked after Moses till he was gone into the tabernacle. And it came to pass as Moses entered the tabernacle, the cloudy pillar descended and stood at the door of the tabernacle, and the Lord talked with Moses. And all the people saw the cloudy pillar standing at the door of the tabernacle. And all the people rose up and worshipped, every man in his tent door. And the Lord spoke to Moses face to face, a man speaks to his friend. And he turned again to a camp, but his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, departed not out of the tabernacle. So what we see here? First of all, I want you to notice there's and it's actually called the Tabernacle of the Congregation. And if you look it up, you'll find that term's actually used of the tabernacle that we've been reading about the preparations for to build. Okay, it's also called that. But notice this is not the same tabernacle because it appears to be on the surface. But let's notice some things. He took the tabernacle and he pitched it without the camp. Okay, it's not in the middle of the camp like it's supposed to be. In the midst. And notice people, when they went to south the Lord, they went to this tabernacle. Remember, no one could go in the tabernacle. Only the Levites could get near it, and only the priests could go in the courtyard and could actually go to the tabernacle. So, and notice also here that Moses going into it, and this power cleanse is sitting at the door of the tabernacle. Well, remember, the fiery pillar was going to stand over the ark of the covenant in the Holy of Holies. And lastly, notice how Joshua is not to part out of the tabernacle. And again, the only ones who could go in the tabernacle were the priest, was Aaron and his sons, Aaron the high priest and his sons. So Joshua could not even go into the could not have went into the tabernacle as well. He wasn't from the tribe of Levi. He could not go, and he couldn't go to the outer court of the tabernacle we've been discussing. This is simple. The word tab. This is a simpler tabernacle, like the tabernacle of David that David built when he finally brought the ark back to Jerusalem. And remember, Moses was told. We read where Moses, after this point on this, but when he goes back up the second time, God tells him to make an ark, but while the other ark's being made, a wooden box. It's just a box of wood, and it just went in this ordinary tent. This wasn't elaborate with all the gold and all those things. It's just an ordinary tent that's the tabernacle of the congregation. So it's not the same one. Now notice Moses is speaking to the Lord face to face, as a man speaks to his friend, because this here also brings another point of confusion. And we're going to see that as we continue on here in Exodus 33, verse 12 through 17. Moses said to the Lord, see, you say to me, bring this people, if you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have also found grace in my sight. You have found grace in my sight. Therefore, I pray you, if I have found grace in your sight, show me now your way, that I may know you, that I may find grace in your sight, and consider that this nation is your people. He said, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. And he said to him, that's Moses, to God, if the presence will not go with me, carry us not up from here. For wherein should be known that I and your people have found grace in your sight, is not that you go up with us? So shall we separate I and your people from all the people upon the face of the earth. And the Lord said to Moses, I'll do this thing also you have spoken, for you have found grace in my sight, and I know you by name. Okay, so his presence going with them, of course, the Holy Spirit, but the Holy Spirit's dwelling is dwelling in this tabernacle at this time we just read about. And notice it's not out in the tabernacle they told about on the mount was going to be in the midst of them. Remember the tribe, the Levites are all camped around it on three sides. The priest on the fourth side, and then the rest of the camps around them, as well. The rest of the rest of the people of Israel are around them, as we'll see in a future lesson. So it's supposed to be so he's saying, okay, I'll go in the middle of you. Is the point here? But because otherwise, what's Moses say? No one's going to know that they're separate from all their people on the earth. How are people going to know that there's people that's set apart to give the example to everyone else? Of course, an example can go both ways. They've been an example of rebellion, and God has brought it down to him, brings it down to him heavy. He makes an example of them. But when they're obedient, he makes an example of the blessing that comes from obedience as well. So God's conceded to go ahead and go in the midst of them. But now Moses wants a little bit more assurance. And here's what we read in Exodus 33, verse 18 through 23. He said, I beseech you, show me your glory. And he said, I'll make all my goodness pass for you. I'll proclaim the name of the Lord before you. And will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and show mercy on whom I will show mercy. And he said, you cannot see my face, for there shall no man see me and live. And the Lord said, behold, there is a place by me. He shall stand upon a rock. It shall come to pass while my glory passes by, I'll put you in the cliff of the rock. I'll cover you with my hand while I pass by. I'll take my hand away, you may see my back parts. My face shall not be seen. Okay, so this is Moses. Now notice you cannot see my face. We just read that Moses had saw the Lord face to face. Now, how could he have seen him face to face and not being able to see his face? Because this is the Father. No man has seen the Father except the Son, Messiah said. It means his face in particular. No one, but but Moses talks to the Lord face to face. This is Messiah speaking to him. That's the only way that can be. And of course, the glory is the manifestation of the Holy Spirit, visible manifestation of it. And so now, clothed in glory, the Father is now we put Moses, put his hand over there. Moses is going to see the backside, see his back parts, but he's not going to see his face. So there's not really a contradiction there at all. You just got to understand. He's talking about. Remember, the Shema, 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 Shema Yisrael, Yadei Bwave, Eloheinu Echad, Yadei Bwave. I'm just giving you the Hebrew letters there, instead of trying to pronounce them. Yahuwah, Yahweh, however you like. But anyway, but the point's the same. Literally, it says, "Pay attention, Israel. The Lord our gods are joined together as one." The Lord pay attention, Israel. Yahweh Bwave, our gods are joined together as one. Yahweh Bwave. That's literally what it says. So it's right there in plain Hebrew in the Shema. So the Shema. This is not this is not something the Greeks came up with or someone else. It was there in the beginning in the Torah itself. But now we're going to discuss another point here. Notice it, and this is about this quote. Paul's going to quote this here. I'll proclaim the name. I'll be gracious to whom I be gracious, and mercy whom I show mercy. He's talking about Moses. Well, yes, but he's also about the people of Israel. Remember the people of Israel here. He said that all the people from the earth. He's going to be gracious and mercy to them and go in their midst. But what about the individuals inside there? Because he also said he would visit their sin upon them. Well, let's just see how that plays out. Is what applies to the group apply to every individual or not? And this is often a point, and this is essential for understanding what Paul the Apostle Shaul is writing here. In Romans 9:14 through 16, we read the following. What shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with God? God forbid. He spoke to Moses, I'll have mercy on whom I'll have mercy, I'll have compassion on whom I'll have compassion. So it's not him that wills or him that runs, but God that shows mercy. Okay, now, this is often people have applied this to individuals and just saying God just randomly picks people to have great grace and mercy on and compassion on, which for us would mean he's randomly not picking other people to, as vessels of wrath and so on and so forth. He's not really not willing that none should perish like he says. That's just, I don't know it's just window dressing, I guess. Then all come to the knowledge of salvation. Because this is what they look at. But if you go up here at the top of Romans 9, what you'll see is he's talking about the collective group of Israel, the people of Israel collectively. And he's going to have compassion on the group. And he goes on, in this section, to say if God had been merciful to them, they'd been like Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, so he's referring to the group here, a collective group, not individuals. And now this becomes more apparent when you go to Romans 11, verses 16 through 26 through 32. We read the following here. So all Israel shall be saved, as it is written. For there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. For this is my covenant to them, when I shall take away their sins. As concerning the gospel, they are enemies for your sakes. But as touching the election, they are beloved for the Father's sakes. For the gifts and calling of God are without repentance. For as you in times past have not believed God, have yet now obtained mercy through their unbelief, So these now also have not believed, though through your mercy they shall obtain mercy. For God has concluded them all unbelief and may have mercy upon all. Okay, who's the you he's talking to? Gentiles in Rome. Not an individual, the group. The believers in Rome, as he says as it says in Romans chapter 1. He's talking to the believers in Rome, again, a group, not individuals. And this group here is Israel. Now, he says about Israel what? Their enemies fear, concerning the gospel, their enemies. Does this mean every single member, Israelite, every single Jew was an enemy of the gospel? Well, no. Shaul, the apostle Paul's writing this. He's a Jew and makes a big deal of it, brings it up several times. Not, certainly not ashamed of it and trying to hide it in any fashion. So is Peter and John and James and all the writers of the Gospels in the entire renewed covenant, Brit Hadashah, New Testament, however you like, are all part of Israel. And they make, and they make no bones about it. So he's not talking about every individual being an enemy, but the group collectively, the majority, if you will. And what about, but notice they're beloved for the Father's sake. Who the fathers? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're as such in the election. The group is elected, not the individuals in the group. Just like the individuals in the group weren't all enemies. Not all of the individuals, but the group is collected. God, the gifts and calling of God without repentance is for what? For Israel, this group, this collective group of people. Now, you in time past did not believe God. You who? Gentiles, believers. Before this, you did not believe in him. But now you've obtained mercy through their unbelief. Because again, not every Jew's unbelief, but the collective groups. And why? Now these Israel, not every Jew again, the collective group has not believed. Your mercy, that you through your mercy may obtain mercy. The mercy shown them will be the basis for God showing mercy to Israel. So God concluded them all in unbelief. Israel, again, not every single individual. It's about the group, the collective, not the individual. They might have mercy upon all groups, not upon all individuals. Because if it means all individuals there, well, then everyone's saved, and there's all this is pointless. It's talking about all groups, all ethnic groups, all nations. But what about the individual? Well, let's go here in Hebrews 3:10-12 and see what it's and get a little clarification on that. And this is also the writing of Shaul. And so there's some controversy about that, about who wrote Hebrews, but I've been able to show pretty conclusively it is his writing, particularly when you look at the benediction at the end, makes it pretty plain. Therefore, I was grieved with that generation, and said, they do always err in their heart, and they have not known my way. So I swear my wrath to shall hither my rest. Take heed, brethren, lest any of you be of an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God. Okay, who's that generation? That generation is the one we've just been talking about, the one that we're talking about, Moses, that generation that God didn't want to go in the midst of unless he consumed them on the way. Well, what happened? They didn't enter into his rest. They didn't come into the promised land. Only two out of that generation did. What happened to the rest? He consumed them on the way, as he said. They all perished in the wilderness, except for Joshua and Caleb. Of that entire generation. Why? Because the heir did not know, and they did not know his ways. So now, did Joshua and Caleb perish? No. They didn't err in their hearts, and they did know his ways. And they did enter his rest. So it was all the individuals who made up the majority of that group who perished. And there's a warning there for us. What happens to us as an individual depends on what we as an individual do. That's where we're warned. Beware. Take heed that we don't depart from the living God. We we have to endure to the end, Jesus said. We we're saved. It's like we're on like we're saved from a shipping sink and there's shark infested waters. And yeah, in one sense, we're saved since we get on the rescue boat, but we're only safe as long as we stay on the rescue boat. And we're not, and our salvation didn't complete until we get off the rescue boat into the safe haven. And it's the same with us today. We have to stay on the boat until the end. Well, those who depart from the living God, no one can depart from the living God except those who are with him. And what would cause them to do that? An evil heart of unbelief, of not believing that God meant what he said and said what he meant. You, the church collective, has all these promises, and it will. Who's in the church? What individuals make up that church is up to the individuals. And you'll only collect on those promises made to the collective if you're part of the collective by doing what's required to be part of the collective. And it was the same with them. Only those who had a heart of belief, who had a good heart of belief, and did not depart from the living God, entered into his rest. It's the same with us today. So let no one deceive you about this. You must not depart from the living God. That means quit walking in his ways. Not just mentally say, "Oh, I believe in God," so the demons they tremble. But you must walk in his ways and continue to walk in his ways all of your days, or you'll not enter into his rest. Now we're going to talk about the angel of the Lord, the Malach Adonai. We talked about him. Remember when God said, "Okay, I'm not going to go in your midst," and then Moses talked to me. He said, "Okay, my presence will go with you." And then all these instructions come about the tabernacle we've been reading about. What about this Malach Adonai that he said would go with them and go before them anyways? Well, let's just see what this Malach Adonai, that's the Hebrew, means the angel of the Lord. And let's just see what the characteristics of this angel is and see what his function is with respect to the promised land. Because remember, this started with the promised land, with Abraham and the promised land, going into the promised land, etc. And let's begin here Let's begin here where the Malach Adonai first appears in the life of Moses. The angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush, and looked, and behold, the fire burned with bush. The bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, "I will now turn aside to this great sight, why the bush has not been burnt. It's not burnt." And the Lord said, so he turned aside to see. God called him out of the midst of the bush, said, "Moses, Moses." And he said, "Here am I." Okay, notice that God called him out of the midst of the bush, but also says the angel of the Lord appeared to him in the flame in the midst of the bush. So this angel of the Lord is also God in some sense. And Moses called him, and why they call him out, and why they call him out of the bush to go down and take the people of Israel out of Egypt and into the promised land. So the call of Moses began with this Malach Adonai, who again is also God. It says it right there. He spoke. You will say, "Well, he spoke to the angel." Yeah, we'll take a look at this and just see, and we'll just see. Now, they said that's why it says God spoke. Well, let's just take a look. In Exodus 14, verse 19 through 20, read the following. The angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud went before their face and stood behind them. And it came to pass between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. It was a cloud of darkness, and they gave light by night to see to these, so that one came not near the other all night. Well, here is referred to as the angel of God, and we showed before that he's speaking out of the pillar by fire by night and cloud by day. He's speaking about that pillar of fire again, just like he spoke out of a fiery bush. And so that same angel is now involved in delivering, in helping Moses carrying out what he commissioned Moses to do in delivering the children of Israel out of Egyptian bondage. And this is right before they crossed the Red Sea, is where that occurred. And this is Moses rehearsing the matter later in Numbers 20:16 about, and this is much after he leaves Sinai, about the role of the Melech Adonai, the angel of the Lord. And here's what he says in Numbers 20:16. We cried to the Lord, he heard our voice, and an angel brought us out of Egypt. Behold, we are in Kadesh, a city in the othermost of your border. He's talking. Remember, right? He's talking to the king of Moab, and he just wants to go through. But anyways, he's telling him how notice this angel brought us out of Egypt. The Lord heard his voice, and what did he do? He sent this angel, and the angel brought us out of Egypt. And the angels we saw before is the angel of the Lord, the Melech Adonai. So that was a function past. That was before the part we just read. Now we're going to look at a promise. I mean, where we read whenever God said he was sending this angel to go before them after the golden calf incident. Now here's what he said. Here's what the Lord said to Moses when he was on the mount before the golden calf incident about this angel. In Exodus 23, verse 20 through 23, read the following. Lord, I'll send an angel before you to keep you in the way, to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions. For my name is in him. If you indeed obey his voice and do all I speak, then I'll be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries. For mine angel shall go before you and bring you in unto the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, and I will cut them off. Okay, so notice he's going to send that angel before them, just as Moses sent an angel and went with them, taking them out of Egypt. It guided them. Remember that pillar of fire's guiding them. The angels in there we saw when we was in that section before. Well, this same angel is going to keep them in the way in the wilderness. He's going to bring them to the promised land. And they got to obey his voice. Notice there's a condition here. Not provoke him. My name is in him. He's not just any ordinary angel. It's not Michael or Gabriel or an ordinary angel. And notice you got to obey his voice and do all that I speak. So that angel's only going to say the words that God gives him to say. And if you'll do that, then God will be an enemy to the enemies and adversary to your adversaries. His angels can go before him. Now, this same language, you got to obey his voice. Is what God says about the prophet, like in the Moses, the people must obey. But talking about Messiah, he will only speak the words I give him, and you must obey his voice. So that's the same thing he's saying here about this angel, and his name is in him as well. And that his name is in him, and again, that's also true about Messiah as well. So again, this angel has these characteristics of Messiah, and let's continue on and see if there's more, see if there's perhaps more to that. Now, for God to be an enemy to their enemies, and this angel to do his job, there are conditions they have to meet. And this is what he tells them in Exodus 23, verses 24 through 28 as we continue on. You shall not bow down to their gods nor serve them, nor do after their works, but you shall utterly destroy them and quite break down their images. And you shall serve the Lord your God, and shall bless your bread and your water, and I will take your I'll take the sickness away from the midst of you. And they shall not cast their young, they shall not cast their young, nor their barren, nor be barren. Oh, there shall nothing cast their young nor be barren in your land. The number of your days are fulfilled. I will send my fear before you and will destroy all the people whom you shall come. To whom you shall come, I'll make all your enemies turn their backs to you. And I'll send hornets before you, which will drive out the Hivite, the Canaanite, and the Hittite from before you. Okay, so now I'm going to send this angel. Okay, that I send my fear before you. Now, that's particularly a reference to the angel, particularly that will destroy the people you've come. But notice he's going to send hornets. Also, in another place tells these hornets, some of these are going to try not to leave the land, try to hide out in caves or whatever. And these hornets are going to find them in the caves and force them out, sting them, and so on and so forth. They're going to be forced out of hiding or killed. Killed by being stung by hornets. So he's going to drive out. And indeed, the Hittites left the land of what's Israel today and moved into central Turkey and created a new Hittite empire up there, lasted for hundreds of years. They were indeed driven out. So these groups actually have an option. The judgment of God's come upon them because of their wickedness. They can be destroyed or be driven out. And the Hittites, a lot of them chose to be driven out. But so there's this benefit of these hornets as well. But notice in these other great promises, he's going to bless their food. He's going to take sickness from the midst of them. They're going to be sick, and they're not going to know anybody they're not going to know anyone among them that is sick. And notice the connection to blessing their food and their water. And prior to this, not what we're looking at now, but he gave them commandments concerning what to eat and not to eat. Okay. And that's tied to this taking sickness from them, and this shown in another place as well. Not there shall nothing. It's not just the people; it's their animals as well. Are going to be stillborn children, or calves or anything like that. Are going to be barren, and they're all going to live to a ripe old age. But what do they have to do besides the things I mentioned? They have to not bow down to gods, and they have to destroy. They have to overthrow them and destroy. Utterly destroy. Overthrow means destroy. Utterly destroy them and quite break down their images. Okay, so that's the requirement for this promise. There are, as I've mentioned before, there are no unconditional promises in the entire Bible. Every promise of God has a condition of somewhere. And I showed it with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when we looked at the patriarchs. But we start with Adam going forward. We showed every single place there is a condition to every promise. God says, if you do this, I promise I'll do that. And the fathers we mentioned, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob earlier, had done their part. We was talking about there in Romans. Therefore, God is obligated to do his part for the collective group that comes from them, not for every individual in the group. Or he can remove a lot of the group and put other people in if he wants to, which he does. Now, we continue on Exodus 23, verse 29 to 33. And we read about this process, what goes on with this angel of the Lord that's supposed to go before them to drive out their enemies, and how he's going to go about it. And here's what we read: I will not drive them out for you in 1 year, lest the land become desolate and the beasts of the field multiply against you. By little and little I will drive them out before you, till you be increased and inherit the land. I will set your bounds to the Red Sea, even to the Sea of the Philistines, and from the desert unto the river. For I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand. You shall drive them out from before you. You shall make no covenant with them, nor with their gods. You shall not dwell in your land, lest they shall not dwell in your land, lest they make you sin against me. For if you serve their gods, it'll surely be a snare unto you. Okay, so notice, first of all, God's not going to do it all at once, because if the land becomes empty of people, lions, bears, and wolves and leopards and whatever are going to multiply. They also have hyenas, by the way, in the promised land. A number of animals that can do them serious harm are going to multiply, and they actually had crocodiles as well, by the way, as well until 1913. It's the last time 1912. I'm sorry, it's the last time a crocodile was seen in Israel, but now crocodile. So so if the people are gone, the land's empty. These harmful animals are going to multiply. There's going to be no one hunting them except. So the thing is, I'm going to drive them out. These other groups, they're going to drive those animals out as they're going along, and leaving you without any to hurt with any kind of hurtful animals to attack you in the process. And notice where it is, the bound of the Red Sea. That'd be a lot today, around the northern tip of one arm of the Red Sea. It splits into two around the misnamed Sinai Peninsula. But the eastern arm goes up there, and that's at the very northern part of that's a lot. The Sea of the Philistines, that Gaza Strip's roughly the area of the Philistines. That's Mediterranean Sea. From the desert under the river. Talking about the Euphrates River. Okay, so this land here they've been given, part of the Jordan, but then you go further north, all the way to the Euphrates. So this land here is going to drive them out, but they have a part. And notice some more conditions. They cannot make any covenant with them or with their gods, and you cannot let them keep living in your land, because they will make you to sin against me. Because you'll end up serving their gods, and that can be a snare unto you. And another point here to making no covenant with them is you find other places that any covenant you made with them, they would not keep. Like a hudna today, like a lot of people in the the more violent the more fundamentalist is Muslims will make a hudna, they call it. It's a covenant they feel only obligated to keep till they get the upper hand. And an example, of course, recently would be when Hamas and Israel made a ceasefire to exchange. Israel took people out of the prison and exchanged them for hostages, and it was supposed to last for 2 weeks or whatever it was. And really, as soon as Hamas got its prisoners back, it broke the ceasefire and started firing immediately on Israel, trying to kill people before they catch them unaware. Well, that's why you can't make a covenant with them. It was the same yesterday, and it's the same today. They're not going to keep it, therefore you cannot make one with them. So, and you can't let them dwell in your land because, well, they're violent and blah, blah, blah. Now, if they became a worshiper of God, they were no longer considered part of those ethnic groups. Like happened with Rahab the harlot, etc. Okay, then they were no longer part of that group. But it's talking about ones who didn't become worshipers of God, who kept worshiping these idols, their gods. Notice, okay. So there's some conditions. There's some conditions to this angel keep driving them out until the land is all clear. Huh. Okay. Now let's just see how they did. Okay. How they did. Now we're looking. Got this promise. It's great and wonderful. They don't have to do much fighting if they keep their end of the deal. But let's see what, if it's conditional. Let's see what happened. Let's see how they did. Now we're looking at how they did and how this angel of the Lord came out and did this. And this, again, we can see this is Messiah, obviously. This angel of the Lord is Messiah. It's pretty obvious. Okay. And let's read it here in Judges 2, verses 1 through 4. This is right, this is right around the time Joshua's about to leave the scene. And here's what we read: an angel of the Lord came up from Gilgal to Bochim and said, I made you to go up out of Egypt and brought you to the land which I swear to your fathers, and said, I will never break my covenant with you. You shall make no league with the inhabitants of this land. You shall throw down their altars, but you have not obeyed my voice. Why have you done this? Therefore, I said, I will not drive them out from before you, but they shall be thorn to your sides, and their gods shall be snare unto you. They came to pass, the angel of the Lord spoke these words unto all the children of Israel. The people lifted up their voice and wept. And Gilgal is the place, the mound of the foreskin, where everyone who wasn't circumcised got circumcised, and they crossed the Jordan River. Bochim means weepings or cryings. And that's because of what this angel of the Lord, okay, the whole time with Joshua, he'd been with them. So, you read Joshua took all these cities. Well, the angel of the Lord was doing actually the majority of the fighting here. It was kind of like if the Air Force or the IDF or whatever goes into a city and just levels it first, and then the army comes behind, and the enemy's already had its weapons destroyed, and comes behind just to get rid of the rest of them, the rest of the refuge. So that's why they've been having this great success. Is this angel of the Lord's been coming upon them? But notice they didn't obey his voice. Again, notice the same language that says about Messiah. I'll put my words in his mouth, and you must obey him. And so they've not obeyed him. And notice, I will never break my covenant with you. I made you go up from Egypt. I brought you to the land that I swore to your fathers. This angel is speaking as if it's God himself, because it is. I will never break my covenant with you. In other words, Malach Adonai, this here, angel of the Lord, literally means messenger of the Lord. But the angel himself is this angel himself is never breaking his covenant with them, because it is Messiah in his pre-incarnate form, one of his pre-incarnate forms. They have not obeyed his voice. So now what have they done? They made league with the inhabitants of the land. Well, they did. They did. They like the people of Gibeah, okay? They didn't throw down their altars. Remember, that was one of the conditions. So I'm not going to drive them out. They're going to be thorns in your sides. They're going to live in the midst of them. Why? How going to be thorns in their side? Their gods are going to be a snare into them. They're going to be thorns in their sides. Just as you got these little groups of terrorists who live inside Israel before they tightened it up somewhat. They have these intifadas and whatever. Intifadas. I know it's intifada for my pronunciation. But anyways, and they were suicide bombings and everything. A thorn in your side would cause you to hurt, would cause you to cry, bring tears to your eyes, and so they're destructive, and their God's going to be a snare to them. They're going to cause them to turn away from God, and eventually be cast into exile because they didn't do what they're supposed to do. They didn't do their part. So now the angel of the Lord is not going to go in front of them, doing most of the heavy lifting, as it were, in destroying and casting out the inhabitants, driving the inhabitants out of the land. However, the angel of the Lord's not done with them. He's still going to help them at various times in completing this mission of taking possession of the promised land and taking control of it. And that's what happens here in Judges 5, in Judges 5 in verse 18 through 23. We read about one of these instances. Zebulun and Naphtali were people that jeopardized their jeopardized their lives unto death in the high place of the field. The kings came and fought. They fought the kings of Canaan and Hannah by the waters of Megiddo. They took no gain of money. They fought from heaven. The stars in their courses fought against Sisera. The river Kishon swept them away. That ancient river, the river Kishon. O my soul, thou hast trodden down strength. Then, then were the horse hoofs broken by means of the prancings of their mighty ones. Curse you, Meroz, says the angel of the Lord. Curse you, barely inhabitants thereof, because they came not to the help of the Lord, to the help of the Lord against the mighty. Okay, notice the stars from heaven. Well, the stars fought against Sisera. Remember that term "stars" is used of angels, and there's a seen world and unseen world. Often, what happens in the seen world in battles parallels what happens to the unseen world. And and there's a supernatural element to this thing about Sisera. Where his chariots got stuck and the river swollen, wiped them all away. And when they did this, who fought against these kings of Canaan that Sisera was in league with? The people of Naphtali, of Zebulun and Naphtali. So when it came time to defend their country, they rose up, except for Meroz. Meroz means refuge, and they tried to be like in World War II Switzerland. They tried not to get involved, and what the angel of the Lord said to Melech Adonai say about them? He cursed them, their inhabitants. Why? Because they didn't come to help, and they didn't come to help fight to protect their homeland, to protect their land. And this term "Meroz" has been used in a derogatory sense since then. Like in the Revolutionary War, it was applied to loyalists, in particular the people, but even more so to people who just tried not to get involved, who tried not to help the Patriots or the British. Because there was a war going on, and the truth is there was no middle ground. And that's what was going on here. They took refuge in this city and tried to just stay out of the fight. And today there's a war going on. The righteous are an abomination to the wicked, and the wicked are an abomination to the righteous. So it tells in Proverbs, there is no middle ground. If you try to live in Meroz, try to find a place of refuge, a place where you cannot be involved in a fight, you're going to end up cursed, just like they were. The time has come. You may have to jeopardize your life unto death. You may, Jesus literally in Acts chapter 1 call us literally to be martyrs. It says witnesses in King James, but the Greek word's martyrs. But if you try to stay neutral and you try to just get along with everyone, you're going to end up cursed by the Melech Adonai Messiah. Pick a side, his side, and stick with it. Now, what do we see in Judges 6, verse 21 through 23 about the Melech Adonai? Because he's not done. He's not done. Now he's going to show up to Gideon when Israel's in trouble again. Then the angel of the Lord put forth the end of his staff that was in his hand, touched the flesh and the unleavened cakes, and there arose up fire out of the rock, consumed the flesh and the cakes, and the angel of the Lord departed out of his sight. And Gideon perceived that he was an angel of the Lord. Gideon said, "Alas, O Lord, because I've seen an angel of the Lord face to face." And the Lord said to him, "Peace be unto you, fear not, you shall not die." Okay, so this angel just departs out of his sight, just disappears after he told him to put some broth and flesh and unleavened cakes on this rock. And So getting it, there's that element of fire again. Notice, the staff there. And now he says, I've seen him face to face, and he's afraid he's going to die. Because remember, God told Moses, no one can see my face and live. You're not going to die because the Melech Adonai, the angel of the Lord, is Messiah. And here, he told Gideon, call him mighty man of valor when he was hiding down in the wine vat, And now has brought deliverance again from Israel to help them continue to spread and remove. They're going to have to do the work now, but he's still helping them upon occasion. Now, what we see here in Judges 13, verse 15 through 18, read the following. And Manoah said unto the angel of the Lord, this Manoah is the father of Samson. Now we're just going to read this. Said the angel of the Lord, I pray to you, let us detain you until we shall have made ready a kid for you. And the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, though you detain me, I'll not eat of your bread. And if you will offer a burnt offering, you must offer unto the Lord. For Manoah knew not that he was an angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, what is your name, that when your sayings come to pass, we may do you honor? And the angel of the Lord said, why ask you after my name, seeing it is secret? And so what we say? First of all, Manoah doesn't know he's an angel. Tells us something. Gonna have big wings on his back, and of course the halo is a pagan thing, blessing of the sun god, or his head glowing or anything like that. Okay, but he doesn't have some sort of corona around his head or anything. He's he looks like an ordinary man. Manoah does not recognize him as he's the angel of the Lord at this point. And notice the angel of the Lord says you can only make an offering to the Lord. And lastly, notice this angel will not tell him his name. Well, the name of Messiah was not known until the time came to reveal it. As Paul says, the prophets longed to know it, longed to see the days we're in, or the days past, even beyond us, but even where we're at. They long to know the things we can read in the Bible today and know, but they couldn't. And they didn't know the name Messiah. So this name is secret. Now we're going to continue on and look at what goes next. The next is in Judges 13, verse 19 to 20. Read the following. The Manoah took a kid with a meat offering and offered upon a rock unto the Lord. The angel did wondrously, and Manoah and his wife looked on. It came to pass when flame went up towards heaven from off the altar, the angel of the Lord ascended in the fire flame of the altar. And Manoah and his wife looked on and fell on their face to the ground. Okay, now Manoah catches on. It's an angel of the Lord. This is the angel. Notice again, the angel of the Lord, the Melech Adonai. And so this one, instead of fire coming down from heaven like it does in several places, this time the fire went up. He had been and shot all the way up in heaven, and this angel went up there, ascended in the fire flame of the altar. Just so that remember, the angel of the Lord had first appeared to Moses in the flame of the burning bush, was in the pillar of fire by night, and so on and so forth. So now Manoah, and notice they fall their face to the ground. It's an act of worship. And now we finish up here in Judges 13, verse 21 through 23. Read the following. The angel of the Lord did not appear unto Manoah and to his wife. And Manoah knew he was the angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to his wife, he shall surely die because we have seen God. But his wife said to him, if the Lord was pleased to kill us, we would have not received a burnt offering and a meat offering in our hands, showed us these things, or would he have told us such things as these? Okay, notice Manoah says the angel of the Lord, we've seen God. Just as Moses saw God face to face. They couldn't see God's face and live. Saw Messiah. So have they seen Messiah. And notice, he received a burnt offering. That angel had told him only offer to the Lord, to Yahweh. So that the angel of the Lord must be Yahweh as well. He received the burnt offering. Again, it's Messiah. So the Melech Adonai was Yahshua, Jesus, before one of his forms, before he came to the earth, before he was born, before he came clothed in flesh, like we talked about last week, that hid his beauty and holiness. So the angel of the Lord appears a few more times, but he's with us. If he's with us, if he's with us to fight our battles for us and go before us, if we'll walk in his ways all of our days, we do not have to fight alone. And we become disobedient. He will still give us some assistance, although we're going to do a lot of the fighting. We're going to do a lot more of the fighting ourselves. And after this came David, and David, by the time of Samuel, Saul, and David, but by the time of David, they had firm control of the promised land, a firm grip of the promised land, even though the people of God told them to drive out, lived among them, they were very much in control of it, just as Israel is. The people of the Israelites are today in Israel. So the Lord, so the Lord, so the Lord, so the Lord is faithful, even though they weren't. And but they could have been a lot easier for them. Instead of 400 years that passed between Joshua and this point here, or almost 400 years that passed between those 2 points, a struggle because they would not obey the Melech Adonai. And you two are going to have years of struggle if you don't learn to obey Messiah in everything. Avoid that. Make him Lord and mean it. That's all I have for this week. Until next week, shalom.